For KRVN Sports, I'm Jayson Jorgensen. UNK Athletic Director Marc Bauer acted quickly this week in naming former Husker assistant Ryan Held as the next head coach of the Lopers. This week I talked to Bauer about the decision to find a new coach and how it all came together. We got a new football coach. You announced this week the hiring of Ryan Held. I'm sure you're excited about that. How'd this all come together to get him to come to Kearney?
Well, this obviously didn't take long. This is probably the most unconventional and quickest hiring process that I've ever gone through. But the main reason is because of just the timing. We're rolling into Christmas break, and the last thing we need is our student athletes going home and mulling this over and thinking, what's next? What am I doing? Who's the guy? What's going on? And our biggest concern is the fact that right now there's over 7,000 student athletes in the football portal. And we do not want to, we want to retain as many of these student athletes as we possibly can. So knowing that time was of the essence, we had to move quickly. And that was really challenging in a lot of ways because, we wanted to dive as deep as we can into our candidates and make sure that we get a good picture, a snapshot of who they are, what they stand for, and, how they fit into what we're trying to look for. So we had three main areas that we were looking at: fit, their focus, and what their plan was. And that's kind of what guided this entire process. Fit. When I talk about fit, I'm talking about their longevity. Last thing we need is a flight risk. There's a real thing out there right now called the coaching carousel. You can get online and look it up. It's this, come in for 2 to 5 years, build the program up, jump ship. And if you sit down and you look at where we're at right now, Jayson, in the last 9 years, this is our fourth coach. We're on the coaching carousel. We got to get off of it. It's in the long run, it hurts continuity. It can hurt the program in a lot of ways. And I know the last guy that came in did a great job of elevating the program, obviously. But again, we're looking for somebody with some longevity along those lines. That means we need to look at the geographic footprint of their family. Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason we lost the last coach. For us, we were in a good place with where we're at with Coach Held because his family. He grew up. He grew up in Overland Park, Kansas City, and he's got a lot of family up in Omaha. Obviously, as an alumni of the University of Nebraska. He's got a lot of friends that are here in this state, and so we really liked, geographic footprint. In terms of fit, one of the things I was, big on was just his lived experiences. He's had lived experience as a head coach at all levels except for D3. He's been at the junior college, the NAI level. He's been at Division II, and he's been at Division I. This is not a guy that's going to come in and things are going to pop up and he not know how to react or work with things because he's that lived experience. He'll be able to say, yeah, I've done that before. I know exactly what to do. Interestingly, going through the hiring process with Ryan, you would think, for him with the Division II experience, you're trying to compare apples to apples. And as we were going through things, he was down in the Lone Star Conference back when it was pretty darn tough. And he actually did some really good things there. In fact, one of those schools he was at, he had back-to-back winning seasons. Since he's left there, they've not had back-to-back winning seasons, and so he did as much as he could with the resources that he had. So, next thing, focus. When talking about what his philosophy was, my concern was student athletes. I wanted to hear a focus that he believed in the Division II model, that he understood that student first, athlete second, and that we heavily, value what we do with our alumni and our community. And I wanted that in this candidate. That's really what this is all about, right? Mm-hmm. Is graduating, matriculation of our student athletes. They come in, we retain them, we help build them up, we help in terms of their development, and then they graduate, and we're proud of them. And that's one of the things. And then the last thing was just the plan. His model with his culture, he calls it DDT: discipline, details, and tough. And this is something that was very attractive to us in a lot of ways, is that he has a model that he's developed over the years, and one that he's used at the highest level in division or in the NCAA and been successful with it. So those are kind of some of the things that we were looking at as we went through this process.
When you look at your program now, you certainly have you have some good momentum. I mean, Coach Lynn built this up. This is in a better spot than it was 6 years ago. What do you think is the key to keeping this going and not slipping? That happens sometimes to programs in a coaching change.
Yeah, and we talked about it. This is this. I believe you'll have to check me on this. This is I think the 6th program in the MIAA out of 12 that have a new head coach in the last 3 years. And every one of these programs have slid back a little bit. It happens, and oftentimes it's just the lack of continuity. Listen, when your leader departs, the continuity is not going to be the same. It's not. You got, whether it's an internal hire or an external hire, it's not the same thing. It's going to be different. And so again, we've seen that when we beat Pitt State 2-3 years ago. That was a new coach.
Yep.
That was a new coach. And I said that to a lot of people. Like, there's a transition that takes place. Whether it's student athlete not seeing eye to eye with new coach's philosophy or whatever it may be, there's going to be a transition period. It's no different than a student athlete that is at a junior college level or somebody that is transferring. It's not the same. You're not going into the same program. You're not going, it's not the same coach. And so I always used to tell my student athletes that were transferring in out of junior college or from a 4-year institution, it's like, I need you to come with a clean slate. That's not possible here, because there's about 100 student athletes on this football program that, although you're going to try to do everything you can to give each one of them a fair shot, it's different. It's not the same thing. So the challenges are definitely there. Getting his staff put together, one that he believes in, one that, again, comes with some of the same focus as he has. We definitely want to stay focused on our student athletes, not just recruiting them, but retaining them and helping them at a very high level.
How did Ryan Held come into the picture? Is he a guy you knew about, had thought about, or he reached out to you when the job came open?
So I was in the MIAA conference meetings when all this was going down with Coach Lynn, and I was in and out of the meetings, talking to the Chancellor, John Watts, Vice Chancellor John Watts, and at that point, through our conversations, Coach Lynn called me up and he said, I've decided to move my family. And at that point, every athletic director in the conference knew what was going on. And at that point, I was starting to get really concerned just because of the timing of us moving into winter break.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I went around and I visited with several of the athletic directors that have had recent searches. And I asked them point blank, who was in your finals that you did not pick, and is that person available out there right now? And that's how we found Ryan. We knew one of the athletic directors who had him as a finalist, top 2, for various reasons. I'm not going to get into that. Didn't hire him. To me, it was their loss.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they didn't hire him. But then the athletic director at Northern Alabama, Josh Looney, just got that job 2 years ago, and he was the athletic director at Missouri Western. As soon as I was done talking to Jim Johnson from Pitt State, I immediately turned my attention to Josh Looney, called him up, and I said, what's going on over in North Alabama? And he goes, I want this guy, but I can't hire him because they won't do an internal hire. They want an external search.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I love this guy. And I go, tell me why you love this guy. He goes, everybody loves this guy. He works. He goes, he outworks everybody I've ever had as a football coach. And then I turned to my senior staff, and on my way back up, I said, start diving. I want you to start diving. We got to start looking at people. And not only his name surfaced, Bill Bush surfaced. There was a bunch of names, high profile coaches that were interested in this job, and it's just circumstances. One of the things that attracted to me, number one, when I talked to him, was the longevity piece. He told me, Coach Held told me, he said, I've been at all the levels except for Division III, And he says, I'm to a point in my career. He's 48 years old. He's got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. And he said to me, I'm looking for somewhere that's in the Midwest, a program like the University of Nebraska-Kearney has, one that's being successful, that has proven they can be successful, one that has the resources, one that has the backing from the alumni and the community, that I can come and this will be my last job. I want to settle down, I want to settle in, and I want to grow a program. And that's what I wanted to hear. I don't want a flight risk. And that's what scares me about some of those other candidates that we were doing these deep dives on. And when I say deep dive, I'm talking about talking to and interviewing their former players, talking to other coaches that they coached against, talking to their former administrators, and getting on the internet. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. We listened to podcasts. We checked out YouTube videos. We did our reading. We did our research. We dug deep. Couldn't find any dirt on this young man whatsoever. In fact, if anything, since the hire, I've been reached out by, and you may remember her. Do you remember Lori Smith? She was our compliance officer for a really long time here.
That name sounds familiar, yep.
Yeah, she went to Lincoln, spent 14 years as compliance officer for UNL, and she emailed me yesterday, and she goes, let me tell you what, you got a great coach. She goes, of all the football coaches I've ever worked with, and she goes, I don't normally say this about a football coach, but she goes, this man is special to me.
And that was UNK Athletic Director Marc Bauer. Now, Held will be introduced formally at a press conference on January 3rd that is set for the Health and Sports Center in Kearney. For KRVN Sports, I'm Jayson Jorgensen.